When you scroll through today's headlines, it's pretty wild. We're seeing dramatic shifts in our environment, huge leaps in technology, and for a lot of people, these events aren't just random. They seem to be echoing prophecies written thousands of years ago. So in this briefing, we're going to dive into these claims and really unpack what's going on.
And really, this is the big question, isn't it? Are things like drying rivers or the rise of digital money just news? Or are they actual signposts on some kind of prophetic timeline? We're going to break it all down, looking at what's happening today and the ancient verses people are tying them to.
Okay, first up, let's talk about the natural world. There are some major environmental things happening that are catching people's attention, not just for the ecological reasons, but because of their supposed biblical significance. Now, this is a big one. The Euphrates River, this is literally the cradle of civilization, is shrinking. The water levels are dropping so low that we're actually seeing ancient ruins reappear that have been underwater for ages. For many, this is way more than just a climate change story. And here's why. This specific verse, right out of the book of Revelation, is being directly linked to what's happening to the river right now. The text is incredibly specific. It says the river would dry up for a very particular prophetic reason. So here you see these two totally different stories emerge. On one hand, the prophetic view says this is a planned event, clearing a path for a massive army for a final battle. Then you have the environmental explanation, which points to things we can measure: really bad drought, a changing climate, and all the dams being built upstream. The question people are asking is, are these two explanations competing? Or could one just be the mechanism for the other?
Okay, so check this out. This event got everybody talking. Back in August of 2025, the Sea of Galilee, a place with so much history, looked like it had turned blood red. You can just imagine the buzz that created.
And of course, this is the verse that popped into everyone's head. It's another one from Revelation, and it describes the sea turning to blood and everything in it dying. The visual parallel was, well, it was undeniable. But, and this is a really big but, the details here are absolutely crucial. The scientific explanation? It was a harmless algae bloom. This type of algae produces a red pigment when it gets a ton of sunlight. And unlike the prophecy, nothing in the sea died. So while it looked shocking, and it for sure echoed that ancient text, the science revealed it was just a natural biological event. And that's a key distinction if you're trying to figure out what's coincidence and what's prophecy.
All right, let's shift gears from the natural world to the digital one. As technology gets more and more woven into our lives, some people are starting to see ancient warnings about control showing up in our most modern systems. The absolute centerpiece of this whole discussion is this concept of the mark of the beast, which comes from Revelation 13. Basically, the prophecy describes a time in the future where you can't participate in the economy, you can't buy or sell anything without getting a specific mark. It's the ultimate system of financial control.
And this is where people start connecting the dots to today. They point to things they call echoes of this prophecy in our current tech. They see the idea of conditional access, where central bank digital currencies could control what you buy. They see biometric payments, using your palm or your face to pay for things. And then they see global organizations pushing for a universal digital ID for everyone. They see all this as laying the groundwork, with AI as the potential tool to monitor and enforce it all. Okay, so we've talked tech, let's talk about society itself. A lot of these prophetic interpretations don't just look at the environment or technology, they look at social trends, like rising persecution and big shifts in cultural values. Take a look at this number, 388 million. That's the estimated number of Christians around the world who are facing high levels of persecution right now, in 2026. To put that in perspective, watchdog groups say that's about 1 out of every 7 Christians on the entire planet. That's just a staggering figure. And this table here shows you exactly where things are the most dangerous. For people watching for prophetic signs, this isn't just a sad geopolitical reality. They see it as a direct fulfillment of a warning from the book of Matthew, which says believers will be hated by all nations. It's the global scale of it all that they see as a major sign. But it goes beyond just persecution. There's also a big focus on the character of society. This list comes from the book of 2 Timothy, and it's supposed to describe what people will be like in the last days. People look at this list and then they look at modern culture, our social media, our politics, and they see a direct reflection. Especially that last point, having a form of godliness but denying its actual power. That one really hits home for a lot of observers. Now, in a lot of these interpretations, the nation of Israel is seen as the master clock. Like, if you want to know what time it is prophetically, you look at what's happening with Israel. Its modern history, especially, is seen as a direct fulfillment of prophecy. This timeline kind of shows you how some people see Israel's modern journey. 1948, when the nation was reborn, is at infancy. Then 1967, the Six-Day War that gave Israel control over Jerusalem, that's seen as its adolescence. So now, in 2026, Israel is turning 77 years old, and that age is seen as a kind of maturity, a ripening, like it's becoming ready for its final prophetic role. So this is how we get to the year 2026 and why it feels so important to some. The logic gets a little bit into interpretive math, but stick with me. It's based on this idea that one day equals 1,000 years. So you start with the crucifixion, somewhere around 30 to 33 AD. Then you apply a prophecy from the book of Hosea that talks about being revived after 2 days. Well, if a day is 1,000 years, 2 days is 2,000 years. Add 2,000 years to that start date, and you land in this prophetic window of 2030 to 2033. And that makes 2026 feel urgent, like we're right on the doorstep of something huge. Okay, for our last section, let's look at the idea of knowledge itself. There's a really key prophecy that talks about an explosion of information and understanding in the end times, and it's being interpreted in 2 very different ways. So this prophecy from the book of Daniel says that in the end times, knowledge shall be increased. Now, from a secular point of view, that sounds like an incredible prediction of our world, right? We have the internet, AI, we can travel anywhere. Human knowledge is growing exponentially. But the spiritual view says it's not talking about just any knowledge. It's talking about a deeper understanding of the prophecies themselves, as current events start to unseal their true meaning. And this idea of increased spiritual insight is also tied to personal experiences. This verse from the book of Acts predicts a time when dreams and visions would become way more common, happening to all sorts of people, young and old. Which connects directly to something happening right now. There's been a huge surge in people reporting these incredibly vivid dreams about an event called the rapture. The dreams often share these striking similarities. People hear a trumpet, they feel like they're physically rising up, and they're filled with this incredible sense of peace. And what's really interesting is that even young children are reporting these dreams with lots of detail. Believers see this as a direct fulfillment of that prophecy. Which really brings us to the final thought here. We live in an age where we have more information than ever before. We can track events across the globe in real time. We can find patterns in everything. And the challenge that presents is a pretty deep one. In a world that is just saturated with data and with belief, how do we tell the difference between a meaningful sign and just a coincidence? Where is the line between a pattern and a prophecy? That's really the question we're all left with. Thanks for exploring it with us today.